So how was the week off?
It was good for me. I didn't do much, so I sort of stuck around Brizzy, but from all reports, the boys had a really good time away. A few boys went to Hamilton Island and had a good trip there, and other bits and pieces.
Just to rewind back though to the game against Carlton, must have been a hard night that night with the Hall of Fame to front up with all those Lions legends.
Yeah.
After the performance that was thrown up.
Yeah, it was a bad night to have a game like that, wasn't it? We were all pretty desolate after that. It was, the mood in the room at the Hall of Fame started off pretty flat, but then we sort of shifted the attention to the guys who were being celebrated on the night. Sort of had to take ourselves out of our own heads and actually put the focus on them, and it ended up being a really good night after that.
So I guess it was obviously a bad week to have the bye after that performance.
Yeah, it was. Like, if you had to pick a week to have a bye, it wouldn't have been that week. But I guess you just can't choose these sorts of things, so just had to roll with it.
How much do you want
to?
You've got the next week to look forward to?
That's it. Yeah, like a lot, to be honest. Like, especially for the, till mid next week. We kind of all were pretty flat, to be honest. It was, as you say, like usually you can turn it around and start thinking about your next week and your next oppo and sink your teeth into that. We probably didn't have anything to sink our teeth into, so you kind of stew in your own head a bit. So yeah, it's a hard one.
Does it make you sting more now heading into St Kilda?
I'd say so. Yeah, we're all probably looking for a chance to redeem ourselves from that performance. So yeah.
Is that where you've obviously improved a lot over the last few years, but to beat a team that you're supposed to beat, is that sort of the next step where to handle that pressure a bit better and just deal with those expectations?
Yeah, it is. We looked at the breakdown yesterday, so I think we've won 2 and lost 2 against top 8 teams, and then won 3 and lost 2, is my maths right, against bottom 8. So it's sort of been like a 50 to 65% win rate against both halves of the draw. So I wouldn't say that we're always losing to teams that are down the bottom, but also you're right, like you do want to make sure you win those games. But to Carlton's credit, they played pretty well. Like, we sort of had the advantage there, and then they did play some good footy to get back into it. Yeah.
What about like road form, Steph? Like, you've beaten some good teams last year, but you've lost your last couple on the road. Is there any concern about that, or another chance to redeem this weekend?
It's an area we've addressed actually just this morning. So yeah, as you say, like of late we probably haven't travelled as well, but over the last 24 months we've been okay. So we went through a bunch of factors that we think might contribute to that and might help us to improve that road record in the short term and medium term future. So yeah, sort of just went over that today.
What do you do differently? Do you travel maybe a day earlier? What are some of the practical changes that you'll make?
We're not going to travel a day early. We looked at slightly changing some of the meeting times and so forth, but we're probably not going to run with that. It probably comes down to replicating the environment that you've got at home and taking that on the road. So if you're a guy that keeps to yourself when you're at the Gabba, do the same thing in Melbourne or in Perth, wherever it might be. Maybe pack your own pillow, like some blokes do that. I do that. Other parts of it, like the schedule does get changed a bit by nature when you're on the road. So you try to simplify that as much as you can and keep it as close to what you would at a home game too.
Would you say it's maybe a mental thing as well, like opposition crowds maybe get in your head? Obviously there's a whole lot of talk about crowd behaviour now. Is it anything like that play into it?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. So we played Essendon and it felt like their crowd kind of, as they got rolling, they sort of, it was harder for us to deal with that, and perhaps we weren't ready for that sort of crowd. Perth's another good example. When the game was on the line there, they had a big following obviously, and perhaps we weren't ready to deal with that. I can't say it's not a factor, but at the same time we've probably played well against hostile crowds too, so it's one of those things. It can work both ways.
Steve, it wasn't as simple as, right, what, 40? We've got this.
Last week?
Yeah.
It wasn't consciously, but who knows what goes on, at the back of your mind. Like, I guess when we looked at the tape, a lot of us were taking little liberties that we probably wouldn't when we're sticking to the process. So it probably does get tempting when you've got a margin like that to do little things that you wouldn't normally when you're on your game. Take kicks that you wouldn't, peel off for handballs when you should be attacking the ball, things like that. So we definitely, we narrowed in on Carlton. We focused on them all week. We gave them all the respect we could. But, you know, sometimes the subconscious might take over. So that's something we've addressed as well. Probably a big RFI for us is that if we do have a lead like that, you've got to keep doing the same things that got you the lead. You can't sort of change and deviate from that.
I'm looking forward. A lot of Lions fans would want to know what your plans are beyond this year, because obviously your contract comes to an end. Have you had any discussions with Fags or your manager about what 2020 might look like for you?
So I think I would love to stay at the Lions. I'd love to be around for as long as I can. I think for someone of my age, I feel like they've wanted to wait and see how it all goes. And I hope to think that they'll, you know, get conversations started if they haven't already, because sometimes my manager's been talking to the club before he lets me know. So I'm not exactly sure where that sits, but yeah, I'd love to be around for as long as I can.
Steph, whether you know, obviously you're sort of towards the end of your career, whether it's this year or next or the following, how desperate does it make you to want to play finals now that you're 10 or 12 years into your career and you haven't quite ticked that box yet?
Firstly, I'm not sure that the next or the following would have to be my last year necessarily. But
Whenever, sorry.
no, it's all right. I'm just joking. I would absolutely love to be around this club when and if we played finals. It's I've been nowhere near it, as you say, for my 12 years so far. Especially going through some of the hard times with this club, and also being in it with a lot of, you know, our fans that have stuck with us and other members of staff and players that have been around. It would be one of the most meaningful things I could do in my life if I was around here to you know, to play finals with the club. So yeah, it would make it all the more sweet having gone through the sort of downs that we have, to be around for the ups as well.
Mate, just on the weekend, Rowan Marshall had quite a day out up in Townsville there. Yeah. Do you analyse that, your opponent like that, and eye that off as a big chance to set the boys on the right path on the weekend?
I think so. I think he's been really impressive. I think rucks tend to keep a bit of an eye on all the other rucks in the league and kind of track how they're all going. And I've watched him and been really impressed over the last year or whatever it's been. Yeah, he's a really dynamic player. He sort of gets a lot of the ball, and he seems like an athletic guy, and strong as well. So he's sort of surprised me with some of the contests he's done. So yeah, that'll be, you know, it'll be a big matchup.
And what about St Kilda in general, Steph? Like, it sounds like we don't know what their team will be, but maybe Hanbury, maybe Carlisle. Like, they've had a pretty decent season, and now potentially some big inclusions. What do you expect from them?
What I expect from the team?
The opposition from the team, yeah.
Yeah, I think they're a good team. We haven't done our Oppo preview yet, so I'll probably know a lot more after we do that. But just having seen bits and pieces, I think they're really when they're on, they're a very good team. They rank highly in some statistical areas. We went through a little bit yesterday, and yeah, there were some really damaging players and a good midfield. So yeah, we got to play better than we did last week.